All right, we'll call this meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Guys, tonight we're going to be a little bit more formal than we have in the past. I want to make sure we keep everything on track, so we're going to be following Robert's rules much more closely tonight. The main rules that I want to point out, everybody saw in the email that I sent out. In order to be recognized, you have to raise your hand, and nobody's to speak until you've been recognized by the chair. And back and forth conversations will be limited. That way we can keep things on track and make sure we get through all the items that we have to talk about tonight, which are a pretty significant amount. Last time we had this many items on the agenda was when Karen Ann was on the board, which was that way all the time. So has everybody read the agenda? Is there anything that anybody wants to add to the agenda?
I don't have access to the drive. Does anyone have a printed copy? Okay, because I think there might be something. Give me one moment. Never mind, it's there.
Okay. No changes?
One change. Don't see it, but I couldn't bring it up. It's that class for $10 that to take. I'll pull it up while you just put it on there. I just want to bring it up.
Class?
See if we can get a motion on it. Get approved.
What's the class for?
Has to do with functions.
Okay, that'll be yours. All right. We have a significant amount of guests here tonight, more than we usually have. We're going to make some changes a little bit on the second part of our meeting. From here on out, we are going to have an opportunity not only for the guests to introduce themselves, but also for any public comment. I'm going to limit the time to 3 minutes. I'm going to do this mostly on Frank's behalf because he always has to sit to the very end of the meeting to give his spiel, and I don't think that's fair to Frank in the event that he wants to leave early. So tonight, Frank, after you introduce yourself, if you want to give us your report for your Center Right Coalition, that'd be great.
Sure. Do you want to approve the minutes before we proceed?
Yes, thank you. We don't have any objections to the minutes as proposed, with the exception of what Lance wanted to add. Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes. Second? Okay. Any opposed? All right, good. Thank you, Mike. All right. The minutes. Has everybody read the minutes from last month's meeting? We have any items that we need to change? Okay, this will be approved as written. Thank you, Mike. Officer reports. I don't have anything to add to my report. The other things that I want to talk about, I put in a new business, so we'll go ahead and go to Vice Chair, please. Excuse me, Karen, you had something?
Didn't you want to let the public comment first?
Yes, I'm getting ahead of myself. Would you introduce yourself first, please, sir, and then we'll go around the room this way.
My name's Tom Conwell. I live in Conifer. I'm a registered Libertarian and I'm a member of the party. Haven't really been active in the party, but I did come to my first event in September at a bar in Lakewood when the Jeffco group got together. I met a few of you there. And I came tonight because I was interested to hear what everybody thought about the elections last week and where we're going from here.
Thank you, Tom.
Nice to see you back down in Fountain. You know me, been here for a long time. Here tonight because I need to light a fire under the board to hopefully get our convention committee about the elections are over with, so we can get those in here so that we get that part. So delegates can have something to work with.
May I remind everybody, please speak up because this is being recorded.
Hi, I'm Clayton Machado. I am here because I saw some concerning comments going on in the LPCO open business. So I'm here to see what's going on at the board. I've been here for a few months. haven't really followed it that closely up until very recently. So.
Thank you, Clayton.
I'm Frank Atwood. I'm your liaison to Center Right Coalition. I'll circulate the handouts from Center Right Coalition. A very glum crowd this morning. Roger, I think, will second that. As Thursday evening, John Andrews summed it up, watching the Tuesday results come in as he was developing more and more empathy for General Custer at the Little Big Horn. So an unhappy crowd there. Basic rule for Center Right Coalition: what is said there stays there. What is circulated there, they want circulated further. So I'll be sending around a package. You can flip through it and get a feel for Center Right Coalition. That's my hat as your liaison with Center Right Coalition. Also happen to be involved with approval voting, which had a successful Tuesday night in Fargo, and in 2020 plans to be using approval voting in their elections there. And I also brought Blake attempts not to get into arguments with people and compare products. I will go down the road of saying that approval voting is far better for minor parties than instant runoff voting. I know some people, names won't be mentioned, such as Roger, have their own thoughts on why it wouldn't be so. But I've got both Center for Election Science and League of Women Voters discussing that. So thank you. Hope I didn't exceed my 3 minutes. Thank you.
Betty Rose Ryan, former chair, former board member from Colorado. Stayed here for a while with my dad.
I know this is Betty Rose's husband. Former Denver cop for 36 years. Chair. 15 years or so.
Later on the board.
I was on the board.
Thank you.
My name is Eric Newma. I just moved to Colorado about a month and a half ago after I set up a county affiliate out in California. And I'd like to hit the ground running here. So I'm going to come and meet some people.
Where are you from? Where are you living now, Denver?
Colorado Springs.
Welcome. Okay, who has not introduced themselves yet? Ma'am?
Hi, I'm Regan Benson. I am just nobody you're observing, and I'm not a registered libertarian. I constantly contemplate becoming a registered libertarian. I was a registered libertarian for one election cycle. I'm a former registered Republican, kind of wondering when the libertarians are going to get their act together and get some libertarians to put on. So I'm just here to watch and observe and understand tension and productivity all in one beautiful meeting.
Thank you.
Jack Ward, longtime member of the party and 5-time candidate. Lance said that you're going to be talking about electability, and I have some positions here. If the floor becomes open for discussion on that subject.
Why don't you give us your ideas right now, Jack?
Okay.
You have 3 minutes. You have 3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay. Well, kind of like pass around these points to ponder. Okay, my first point is remember John Lennon. If you go handing out pictures of Chairman Mao, you ain't gonna make it with anyhow. If we are an electoral body and bother to register with the Secretary of State, we have to stop talking about it. Number 2, remember the Mad Tea Party. When the Dormouse kept saying twinkle, 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 they suppressed him, and they suppressed him by stuffing him in the teapot and putting the lid on. And to a certain extent, we have to suppress ourselves and our fellow members. I know it doesn't sound democratic, but I have very much respect for democracy around the party anyway. So, okay, my third point is marching to Shibboleth. Nobody cares about Basquiat. Nobody cares about Hayek. Nobody cares about our crackpot conspiracy theories about the Federal Reserve. And nobody cares about the Austrian group. Okay? We can believe this if it gives us internal strength, and we can talk about and pat each other on the back, you know, congratulate ourselves on our wisdom of having read these books. But they're just shibboleths of the party. All people want to hear about is what's going to happen to the schools, what's going to happen to the roads, whether the kids are going to go to war, and whether there's going to have jobs. That's all people care about. Sartre v. Sartis. If you want to have electable people, they have to dress as nice, at least as Mike Spaulding. You know, and Michael Stapleton. You know, guy without a suit, he looks like a garage mechanic. Put a suit on, he looks like the legislative director of a political party. You know, clothes make the man. That's what Carlyle wrote in the 1840s. Sartre v. Sartis. His Honor the Mayor. I mean, this is nothing you haven't heard me say before. We should let people run if they want to for Congress, but the only races we should be interested in are city council races, county commission races, water board races, and fire board races. It's the only thing we should pay any attention to as the organized center of the party. I became a libertarian about 20 years after 40 years ago. A libertarian named Bob Wine in Seattle sat across the chessboard from me and he said, "You know, Jack, that in the communist countries, their constitutions guarantee them freedom just like we have." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "You know, Jack, in the communist countries, they don't really have those freedoms, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You know why that is?" And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because if private property isn't enshrined as a basic human right, when the government comes to tear up the Constitution, which all governments do eventually, you don't have anything to mortgage, so you can hire a lawyer. The private property is a basic human right, and that's what you hippies," I was 26 years old, "that's what you hippies don't understand." And I said, "You got a point there." And then 20 years after that, I became a libertarian. But that's what, you know, that and basic human freedoms. I mean, you can leave behind all the funny economic theories and stuff like that. I think sometimes we get wrapped around the economic theories. The party was wrong when it said endorse Amendment 74. Amendment 70, that would only be fair if you could sue the oil companies if they let off methane near your house and reduce the value of your house. Then I would have voted for 70. But it was just the oil companies' insurance against 112, and they spent maybe $100 million on that in this state. So,
Thank you, Jack.
thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
Yes, we have one more gentleman back here that hasn't introduced himself yet. Would you please? And please speak up so our records director can hear you.
Yeah, my name is Kyle. I just joined the Libertarian Party about 3 months ago or so.
3 months ago?
Meeting I went to.
Good.
Kyle, what's your name?
Jury, F-U-R-E-Y.
All right, do we have everybody? I think we do. All right, very good. Officer reports, I already said I don't have anything to add to mine. I'm guessing that everybody has taken the time to read all the board reports. Okay, Vice Chair.
I feel like I mentioned in my report that I was in Glenwood Springs meet and greet on the 13th of October. It was a very good. All done.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
one
yeah.
more thing.
Yep,
While
I
I was
just began.
there, I was talking to Angela, the girl who set it up, and we discussed the possibility of having a 2020 convention in Glenwood Springs. We could bring in the Western Zone. Only 2.5 hours from there.
Did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, so I see in your report you're looking for a volunteer to take the list
Yes.
and find contact. Do you have one? If you don't have one, I'm going to help you find one.
I will forward the list that I started to you. There's over 100 names on it.
Right, and then you want help.
Yeah.
I'm not going to help you find the contact, but I'll help you find somebody to do that.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, email me, please.
Okay.
Thank you, Michelle. Treasurer's report.
Nothing to add.
Okay, anybody have any questions on the treasurer's report? Okay, fundraising.
Nothing. The only thing to add was I did participate with Eric Mulder in one of his campaign events or sign raising, which I mentioned earlier. I have failed for now the second month running to do my write-up, which I promised to Kevin, which I will do on why it's important not just to vote Libertarian, but also to register Libertarian, which I will do that. I apologize, I'll do that this week. That's it.
Thank you, Russian. By the way, great run. Your efforts were.
Sadly, only the people in this room seem to appreciate it. But,
Well, I also it helps you. I live in a cesspool of blue. That helps you.
All right, campaigns.
To add to my report, I am putting together an intake form or a registration form for candidates to fill out. I'm making a paper version and I'll also make an online version. The second thing is, as I said, that the outcome of the election is not a reflection on our candidates or the efforts that we put forward. It was a reaction to what's going on nationally. And I want every single candidate to know that we appreciate them, we appreciate their run, and we think we did a really good job of fielding some of the most professional candidates and best presented candidates that we've ever had. Third thing is I'm getting a lot of inquiries for 2019 and 2020 runs, so that is very encouraging.
Yes, you have. I've been sending at least one a day to you. David?
National will have a standard form to enter all the candidate information, so you may want to match up with that and use that instead, and that goes directly into the database.
Okay, we have, this is on the agenda for later, but if I may beg indulgence for a minute. I am getting information from 20 different areas. I'm getting people emailing me directly. I'm getting forwarded emails from everybody else on the board, except for everybody who wants to run for a campaign should be coming to the campaigns director. When I'm trying to go through my email, and this was a particular problem in 2016, trying to go through my emails and find people to run, I had to go through every regions because regions was getting the candidate info. If a candidate wants to run, their information should be coming to the campaigns director, not coming through the chair, not coming through regions, not coming through the database. It should be coming to one spot. And I agree, if they're going to standardize, but there are a lot of things in Colorado that we want to keep track of. And one of the things that we didn't do last year is keep a record of everybody when they came at the end of convention to get notarized and whatnot. So at convention, either I need a paper form or I need an online printout or something that we can have a physical record of who's running and where.
And 2 forms of contact.
And 2
one
forms
email
of
to
contact.
one, sorry.
Yes.
Go ahead, Liz.
2 forms of contact, 1 email, 1 phone number, and I think you and I should, or whoever is campaign director, both be on the same page with that, because I got it, I don't know, maybe not as many, but many through the Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, plus email. Who is this person I want to vote for them? And then paper inquiries too, a lot of media.
Yeah. So
Charlotte?
I will have that I'll be sending over, obviously, just as a member. I've been working with Scott Lieberman. He offered to do research for any affiliate that reached out to him. I reached out to him on finding the obscure races and appointments that most people overlook. He sent me a bunch of data, so I'm going to go through it with Scott and forward that on to the board.
Our party developed a database. It has every government office in Colorado, tells whether it pays or not, the contact, how to run, and everything there is, how often, qualifications we have. And we actually gave the information from that to Independence Institute because last year they were running a focus on small races. So hopefully we won't reinvent this yet again.
Can you send that?
Roger?
What formats can you?
Anything.
Really? FileMaker?
I can find something.
I can export it to Excel or something.
Yeah, Excel. But there's also appointed seats in Scott's thing.
Yeah, I think this one is appointed too.
Okay.
Maybe you can look. Maybe
Yeah, I want to see what you have and then see if there's anything we're missing.
Roger?
The same topic, Kara Schultz from LNC sent out this request for, she's basically, I think we're all talking about the same thing. We're all trying to target races, small competition. And are you responding to that, Kim? Because she's basically gone out and she has requested that we identify races where it was like they were taking fewer than, where it was a two-person race, where fewer than 5,000 votes, where the average spend for a campaign funding is like 10,000. She had a whole list of criteria. Who's responding to that? And is this something I'm dreaming, or she did send this out, and who's responding?
I saw it.
Yeah.
She did send it out. We have the request out that Kevin put out on Facebook as well for the affiliates to look at those races in their areas, because there's a lot that we don't know. Number one thing is that when we held our convention, we're above ahead of the R's and D's, so they have their primaries after that, and so a lot of the times we don't know who's going to be running or if they're going to contest the seat. We don't have that information when we have our convention and appoint somebody. So that's why it's really important to have a button every seat with an L on their lapel, so that if you have to drop out later, that's fine. But if we find that there is only a Republican running or only a Democrat running, that we have an L placeholder that we can slot in there and concentrate some stuff on. So that is a really big important thing.
Is there a possibility of forming a committee for campaigns? I would already volunteer.
This is something that I have actually discussed, I think, with you, Matt, that yes, at convention, we want to be calling for committees and have sign-up sheets at convention so that we can get these things done and organized. There are a lot of ideas in terms of strategy for moving bylaws and platforms to to the off years of convention and candidate elections or appointments or whatever in election years, so that we can do that. I also want to start calling now for 2020 candidates, so that we have a dual thing going. So in 2019, we want to be focusing on all the small races, finding all of those places that we can. And a lot of these boards and everything pay. RTD, I think we all know, pays. Jefferson County Commissioners pay and pay very well. Yeah, and so this is all of the things that we want to do so that we have 2020 candidates being trained.
You're out of time. Kim, you have a lot more to talk about. Does somebody have a motion to extend Kim's time?
I can go on for hours.
We'll to extend for 5 minutes.
Okay, we have a second. Objection? Okay, go ahead, please.
I was objecting.
I'm sorry.
Just my formal objection would be that it is on the agenda that we're going to hit a serious election talk under Roger already. So I don't know if we're getting ahead of ourselves going further with this, unless we just want to move that up.
We only have 5 minutes for Roger's talk tonight, unless we extend. So I think if you feel as though there's something that Kim is talking about that we need to extend our conversation, we already have the extension here. You've objected, so we're going to have a vote on the.
No, that's the case I move forward. I would rescind my objection.
Okay, go ahead.
So as we were talking about, finding all of those small races and getting people into those races so that we get elected libertarians. Once we have elected libertarians, we have people on boards, we have people in those small offices, we have a platform of success on which to build. Because nobody wants to back a losing horse. Nobody wants to put money on a losing horse. And we need money to run campaigns. And to attract money, we need professional candidates, whether they're promoting a minarchist or an anarchist libertarian message is beside the point. The message needs to be framed properly and professionally. That will bring in money. So if we can get bumps on seats on boards, councils, regional boards, all of these kinds of things, we have a track record of success. We then move into training candidates from the 2019, so we get a declaration to run, in which case then they can come. We hold some training classes for how do you get your message out there, how do you campaign, where can you spend money, these sorts of things, so that when 2020 convention comes, we have a wide pool of candidates on which to draw.
Roger?
Kim, I think this is following up in your training. You know, one thing that occurred to me was that, for example, it would have been live when I was running. It would have been great if I had started 2 years ago and I had joined like the Elks, like, you know, in all of these. So is that going to be part? Because I think if we do have enough of a run up, people have to start integrating themselves. And I've obviously probably the worst example because I just moved to Colorado. But people have to start integrating themselves into the community. Will that be part of the training?
Yes, you cannot start your campaign at the 2020 convention.
Right.
You kind of have to start now. And especially from 2019 convention on, we do exactly need that. If you're going to run in 2020, joining a small board and being known in your community is a big thing. You know, a lot of the city council members in Broomfield know me. I go to Liberty on the Rocks in my area. I attend meetings. I go to meet and greets and things like that, and try to join the mothers groups and chat to people so that my name is known out there, and not just as a political candidate, but as a caring member of community. These are things that.
Steve?
Just a real quick point. There's a new Weld County volunteer, and he's running for Greeley City Council.
Yes.
Starting right now.
Yes.
Okay.
These are things that we do need to do.
Kim, you mentioned that you wanted to start the campaigns committee at convention. Have you thought about starting it before then?
I have, but definitely, and not just for campaigns, but other committees that we need volunteers for. We should have a booth for signups. To get on committees. I mean, you know, we have interested and active people at convention. We should be mining that data, mining that resource, and you know, saying to people, okay, you need to be on this committee, sign up here. I think that's one missed opportunity when we're all gathered there. Why not fill seats on committees at convention?
Kevin?
I would just, what Lance said and to what Wayne just said, if you want to start a committee, let's start today. You got a volunteer over here, I'll be a second volunteer. Let's start. Now's the time to be thinking about, we need people to come to 2019 convention prepared to run. We need people now to come to 2019 saying, I'm not running in 2019 because I got my eyes set on 2020. Can't wait until the convention to have people running around the back of the room trying to get people to raise their hands and stand up for seats. They need to know what they're doing going in, and you can't do this by yourself.
No, I can't.
So I would like to move it as soon as possible, form committee, and get on it, because one thing that I'm going to bring up is analyzing the election results. And there are about 16 races that were unopposed, or not unopposed, but it was a D versus an L, or D versus, nothing. So if we can look at that stuff, we're happy to spend a few weekends leading up to January 1st.
Excellent. Time.
Thank you, Kim. Okay.
Other than thanks for all of you that came. It's getting to be every 2 years. I start to go through this massive panic attack as we get closer and closer to November. Not just because it's my birthday and I'm going to be a day older. 63. But actually, I mentioned, I think, that the watch party was probably the best part of the election season over the last 6 months. We had a good time.
Thank you for hosting this.
Yes.
Sarlos?
Did we have a new outreach
You do?
in your report?
Did I post a new one?
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, bouncing baby boy.
Bouncing baby.
Okay, anything else, Kevin?
She's the only one who read the report, so.
I read all.
Regents.
The only thing to add to the report is I did some literature flyer distribution for Ross Claw along with quite small.
Okay. In our last meeting, we talked about what region we were going to look at building or starting a development group next. And it sounds as though we may have an opportunity in Weld County with Matt and Marie. Did I read your Facebook post correctly?
Yeah, Marie is back in the fold, ready to go, and she's more connected to health than she was previously due to her jaunt over the GOP briefly. And yeah, I think she's going to be a really, really good asset. She knows where to focus, and I think Will could have a lot of fun.
Steve, would you make a contact with Matt and get something set up to get that ball rolling?
Yes, and the new volunteer said that he may not have time to run the group, but he wants to help out, so I can.
You said he was in Greeley too?
Right.
That's excellent, because Tim McCarthy has offered us some space.
Okay, good. Anything else, Steve?
Nope.
Okay. Karen Ann, are you giving Mike's report or any additions? Has he?
He hasn't, he just would like the board to refer to his report, and if they have any questions, to shoot it over the email system.
Okay. I'm sure you guys read his report, should have. He also included his legislative committee report, as he should have, in his regular monthly report. Does anybody have any questions that they can pose to Karen Ann that she may be able to answer on Mike's behalf?
Question.
David?
Do you know if POL is going to do their thing again this year?
They've been doing it every year.
Well, yeah, but I haven't seen their training schedule up yet.
I'll look into that.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm interested in that.
Kevin?
Mike had mentioned to me that he just wanted to kind of get some exposure for this Libertarian Day on the Hill kind of thing in February. Something, some Libertarian love to the State House. To try and get some people excited about it.
That's something, Lance, you want to reach out to Mike and see if you guys can put a plan together to get it on social media? Sure. Anything else? All right, membership.
Nothing bad.
Communications. I'm sorry, Karen Ann, you had something?
Yeah, I'm looking over the membership director report, and I'm looking for details on actual membership. I see a lot of involvement with campaigns, which is fantastic. But been going through past reports and stuff, and I don't see any numbers or concrete plans. No reporting on national party members above, has it dropped, has it increased, what are the plans to further that, or phone calls made to members. I just don't see anything about membership at all.
Yeah, and a lot of that, Karen Ann, you'll be able to find that in our region representatives report that he puts out, that you did for quite a long time. There's such a fine job doing as well. So I tend to lean towards that. This is, I'm glad you brought that up though, because this is something that I've been dealing with in my head. So the idea of membership, registrations are obviously a great goal. We need to be working on trying to build the registrations and bring membership from there. But the idea is, for the hardcore membership, basically we have a product, okay? And I have been sitting around, scratching my head recently, wondering what is the product that we are trying to sell? If you're going to ask somebody for money, they need to be able to do an investment. There need to be some sort of a way that they can say, I gained that. And it is my full belief that we will never be able to maximize membership until we are able to maximize our effectiveness in election. All of this is going to go hand in hand. It matters so much with people making the door-to-door contact, which I've been learning, talking to people that have been working these big races that the LNC is invested in, and how they've been doing well, throwing these votes and getting support. I fully believe that no matter what effort we put in as far as social media and otherwise, we're always going to be hindered until we have the day that we have people that are consistently wearing out their shoes, get in positions to show people what libertarians can do. Because right now, public, all libertarians do is talk.
Michelle?
When we're right on the throes of an election season, we have really good candidates out there running hard races. I don't care who is out there helping them. That is number one priority. And that's how we gain members, is when they learn that they've got somebody like Roger Barris. When they meet Roger Barris, they're willing to sign on the dotted line and become a member. I think that does build membership. So
it does.
As far as writing down how many people you talk to or how many members you reached out to, I think you reached out to a lot of people when you just get involved, when you wave signs. Having a sign for Eric Mulder and standing on a street corner, you're building membership. So, yeah, and I do. And you are one of the hardest working people for campaigns we've had full season. So, I applaud your efforts there. I really do.
Yep.
And I don't disagree at all there, but there needs to be personal follow-up, and that's kind of what I was looking for. The plans for the future. See, our members read the officer reports. They might not necessarily come here, and I read Region 1's report, and it didn't have any of that information in it. If Richard's not including it, maybe you should speak with them on that. But members should be able to look on here to see what we're actually doing. Nothing beats getting on the phone and following up with somebody who saw our sign or did that. There are certain things in the bylaws that we should be doing, and I didn't just look at this report because it was election. Everyone's going to be busy with elections, but just in general, I'm hoping to see that.
Take an extension.
Yes. Hello.
2 minutes. Whatever non-top, whatever lands my one.
Okay. We have a motion to extend by 2. Second. Objection. Lance?
I would challenge you to this: is if there's finally a little spark in Weld County, get on the horn. Can you get a list from David? Get on the horn. Make a call on every single prospect, somebody in the Libertarian Party who's ever a registered member of Weld County. See if you can set up, get the development group going. I would love to see. It kills me that my red neighbor, the neighbor that has all of the people who hate the government the most compared to loving the government where I live, doesn't have an affiliate. So it blows me away.
Yeah. So what I think it's a really good idea, and I think day one, first meeting that we would do with that is we should bring our phones with us and we should all get together and hammer that together. I think that's a big part of it. You got to have those projects involve everybody. Sure. We're on the fight together. So for my extension, something I want to mention. So at your wonderful election night event, I spent a fair amount of time talking to Ramon Doan, who I think was one of our best pickups that we had during this election season. He is sharp. He communicates well. Dude is polished. It's polished. And he is looking at running for clerk and recorder in Denver. And he is going to be running against Lopez, the gentleman who is term limited out of the council who pissed off Victoria Reynolds. So we have an interesting person, a libertarian, who knocked 10,000 doors for a Democrat to be involved in. And I want to utilize this for the Denver group as Elections 101. This is their opportunity from getting the person on the ballot to hitting the doors. On the other side of that, for the more radical folks in the party, there is the option to go with psilocybin legalization or decriminalization in Denver. I am going to be getting with people involved with that to try to get them out of board meeting. These are the things which matter.
Take a minute. Communications, what do you have for us, Lance?
Nothing, only one thing to add, that is, I got my procedure manual done. What are you guys waiting for?
Yeah.
You can't yell at me anymore.
Thank you, Lance. All right, Mike.
Okay, first I'd like to start with a motion. Right now, we have a standing resolution, get a voter registration disc 4 times a year every quarter. Orders don't line up with our uses as well as we'd like. In fact, right now, I ordered voter registration disc some time ago. And right now, the Secretary of State is holding it up until they get all the election data in to send us something that will be more useful, something that's basically out of date. We really only need the disc 3 times a year. We need it for the convention, to know who's registered Libertarian. We need it at the beginning of outreach season, so you have volunteers to call from. And then we need it maybe September for walking lists and stuff for our candidate. So I move that we use this 3 times and we get it at the time of year we need it.
That's fine. David and I had this same conversation earlier today. So, Michelle?
Since the beginning of the outreach season is basically May, and we have our convention in March, I don't really see a reason why we have to have another disc. Why don't we just do it twice a year?
I will change my motion to.
Can we establish those 2 times a year?
Yeah, well, before the convention is easy.
Mike, would you restate your motion, please?
Okay, my motion is that instead of getting our voter registration this quarterly, we get it twice a year, once before the convention and once at the beginning of the campaign.
You have a second on that?
Second.
Any objections? That objection, that passes. So David, you know what the schedule is for ordering? Okay, you don't have to put that in front of the board every time. Just go ahead and order.
Okay.
All right, and then our email was clogged up with some discussion of calendar items. So this is a calendar that we had before 2017. And somebody spent quite a bit of time making it, put the green boxes where you change it and everything. It's really nice. But of course, we didn't use it. So we now have a spreadsheet that has all dates. Dave developed the core calculations, date calculations, and then I added other things that we needed to have, like Secretary of State deadline, some of the other ones out there, and then added appropriate email contacts. All events have been added to the state LP calendar. So if you go to Google Calendar and log in as one of us, you'll be on there. But you won't see anything because the way it works is it's only the person who puts it on sees their stuff. And I haven't found a way to make it so that everybody sees it, but I have it. And so what I'll do is when we come for each meeting, I can say what's coming up next. Somebody suggested that. So for example, what we have coming up next, the next thing we have coming up is actually after the next board meeting. That's the only thing we have coming up. And that's the 28th of December to some kind of announcement. Committee appointments, announce our committee appointments on the 28th. That's the deadline for it. So we'll just do it that way. I'll mention anything. The calendar's been set up where everything's repeating, and once a year, you just have to put in the convention date, and then everything will change on the spreadsheet, and then you have to, unfortunately, manually go in and update the calendar. And so whoever succeeds me can do that as well.
We have a mechanism to remind the board whenever an important date is coming up.
This is the mechanism, just that, right there. But anyway, no, that's all we got. So what I wanted to do is set it up to do automatic emails whenever it comes up, and it'll do that to me. So for events that come up, I have everybody's email in who's responsible for what, and so the emails would go to them once that functionality is available, Google Calendar or something. That's where we are.
Thank you, Mike. Anything else? Karen Ann?
I don't know if this is the case or not, but I think we're still missing potentially following the deadline. Looking at the platform committee deadlines, have the affiliates been specifically solicited and their instructions for their appointments? Because we haven't seen it in Douglas County, and speaking with Mr. Seebeck about El Paso, so I don't think that's yet been complied with.
Karen Ann.
You mentioned to us that this was all wrong, and then we went over back and forth about what needed to be done. You said it needs to be put up on the website for it to be legitimate, and we did that. Okay, we did that.
Point of order,
What?
Mr. Chair. For
What
one thing,
did I miss?
direct your comments to the chair, please.
Matt, I think we're talking about two different things here.
We are.
And Karen, would you go ahead and please explain what you're referring to? Because I think Ben is confused here.
And we're out of time, so I would move to stand for 5 minutes.
Second. Any objections? Okay, go ahead.
1 second, let me just restart the timer. That was dealing with soliciting for members. I'm not the grand poobah of bylaws. I can say my understanding, but it is incumbent upon the board to actually read the bylaws. I did not get this knowledge from on high. I simply read the bylaws. And there's a procedure in here where there's supposed to be an affiliate representative, an AR, each of the affiliate groups. That AR is supposed to be contacted personally by email, by phone call, and one way or another to explain to them that your affiliate is allowed one platform committee appointment, one constitution and bylaws committee appointment, and tell them the deadline to name their appointments. They have that same deadline time frame as the solicitation from the members. That is clearly stated in the bylaws. We haven't blown that yet, but we're about to. So all I'm asking, wasn't looking for a fight or any kind of controversy, is have we done that? And if not, can it be done? That is simply it.
Lance, I think that would be something that would be in your wheelhouse as a communications director.
Nobody's assigned to it. I did it when I was.
Right, nobody's, it's a shared responsibility.
And I can do it as the convention chair as well, but just to be clear, so if we're all square when it comes to meeting these requirements, if we got it up on the website like we did, and if we make these contacts, is that correct, Karen? Your understanding of the bylaw?
Yes,
Okay.
but I would encourage everyone to read Article 6. And what I'm looking at is Article 6, Section 3. Well, to solicit is, we've always interpreted that to be personal contact. We did that each year before. Otherwise, Douglas didn't know. And I'm sure the other affiliates didn't know. So
6.3?
yes, bylaws, Article 6, Section 3.
Kevin?
Just a couple of questions. We have a Arapahoe County Board meeting tomorrow night. What does it take to make this officially a request? Can a board member take that to affiliate and say, let's
Yes.
find somebody?
Yes.
Because I don't know when we'll have our next.
You're aware of it now, so that's
So
considered
we-
personal contact.
We need to appoint somebody from the affiliate prior to December 28th. That's what you're saying.
So that's Arapahoe, Ed Douglas, what other affiliates do we have?
El Paso,
El
Delta.
Paso, Boulder,
Delta.
Delta's official.
Delta's
No.
official.
Yeah, because Jay took up the mantle on that.
Oh, Delta, yes.
So is Delta the only one that's not represented here? Right?
So
Somebody called Delta. Make it official.
I'll alter Mr. Dukes is Delta.
Okay, thank you for the reminder, Karen.
We need an affiliate for platform and bylaws and constitution.
Or
Or it could be the same person.
and they can waive it. They don't have to.
Kim, did you have something you wanted to add? All right, guys. Standing committee reports. Mike is not here for technology. David, what do you have for us for tonight?
Nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. Kim?
Did you want to talk about the mansion?
No.
Okay. Committee reports. We had the committee to reach out to local groups, and that's been on here for 3 months. And I don't recall what we came up with last month. I looked it up. I didn't see anything.
I'm on that committee. I will say that this has just been a recent development, put things together with what to do with Ramon wanting to run a real race. He actually got out and hit some doors, by the way, too. He knocked about 800 doors, he said. The reaching out to local groups, I think that our biggest one is going to be Denver, and that our task on reaching out to this group is going to be present to them an election guideline and coach them and help coach them through this task. That's what I believe the next move we're at.
Okay, Mike?
I'm just looking at the minutes and I see Roger talked about reaching out to Elks and several similar organizations, but nobody actually took the ball with actual action. Right.
Elks and Rotaries and things like that, they don't officially endorse and things like that. As far as reaching out to those, that's got to be done on an individual basis. It's nothing that we can do.
Roger?
As I say, I wasn't thinking so much of endorsements as you know, again, this is back to my earlier comment with Kim, that this is kind of in the run up to election, you know, finding out if you can speak to these organizations. Yeah, I don't expect they would endorse. I think one of the things that would probably give them problems, but would give them problems with their membership, maybe even their tax status. Mm-hmm. But conversely, you know, starting to hit these groups now as a way to, you know, here's, you know, talking to them about sharing ideas, you know, candidates talking to them. That's what.
Okay, David?
I think if you contact Public Works in Denver or go on the Denver Gov website, you'll find a list of neighborhood groups. And there are probably 70 or 80 of them or something.
Kim?
Further to Elks clubs and things like that, we should also look at Toastmasters. Very, very good organization for prospective candidates to get involved with.
Yes, and the Liberty Toastmasters is a great group. I went to one of their meetings about 3 years ago. It was really good, 5 years ago. Okay. Convention committee. I'm sorry. Roger, go ahead.
The other thing we should do is that, again, maybe we should have like someone who takes responsibility for each, you know, example, one person who's going to be like, we have Frank, or as our liaison with the Center Right Coalition. I think we should have a liaison with, you know, Elks. We should have a, you know, a liaison. And then another one to do would obviously be universities. You know, for example, I tried to get in front of, you know.
Hi, Mr. Chair.
Okay. We have a motion for extension.
Move to extend 1 minute.
1 minute is fine.
1 minute. Second.
Yeah. Okay. So, you know, for example, I tried to get in front of YAL, YSL, etc. And maybe we should kind of we should take an assignment where each of us says, okay, this person's going to take CSU, this person's going to take CU, this person's going to take YELP, etc. And because you know, we can try to get in front of these organizations, not just during campaign.
We have a list of probably 100 volunteers that want to help us. We haven't reached out to. That is our gold mine. And I think that's important that we take advantage of that. Kim, I think that would be something that would line up under your wheelhouse, is line up a few volunteers and see if they can make contact with some of these other groups. Okay, thank you. Convention committee.
Convention committee. Frank, are you okay if I mention our
Yes.
points?
Okay.
So this is where we're at with convention committee. We have our place. We missed the dates. We cost everybody some money. That was really lovely. We have to. The next thing really is we got to try to finish completing the product, and the product is going to be. I have been looking at a few. The person that has come to mind that I want, if I get the money, which I would have to get the committee to vote on, is I'd like to potentially get Robin Corner up. I think he'd be a big hit in Colorado Springs because he was he had the Blue Republican movement, and he brought in a lot of people to the Ron Paul campaign in 2012, which is how I ultimately found the Libertarian Party was through that. And his messaging was fantastic, and I think he threw some great training sessions for us down there at our convention. I took a couple things he did in New Orleans. They're great. The guy's fantastic. He's doing work with national marketing. So I called Mr. Atwood, who's always been a friend of the party and very, very generous with us. And I said, Frank, looking for, well, we just talked for a little bit. First time ever, Frank put me on a timer. I knew something had changed.
Okay, you're out of time.
I request 3 minutes.
Okay, no objections?
I talked to Frank and I gave him this bill for about $1,200 to work towards getting Robin here. And it would be an event sponsored by approval voting or however they'd want to do. He's mulling it over. He asked me to call him later on this week. So that's where we're at right now. Is I'm looking at what budget we're going to really have for the speakers that we can come in, because usually that's going to come in from your outside sales and things like that. And Frank and Blake have always been very dependable. When they step away, things kind of you start to lose some of your financial ground there. So I'll finish my call with Frank later on this week, and we will be able to move from there on speakers. We're due to get try to get our base menus by the end of the month. Committee's all been contacted. At this point, it's going to be sales and putting everything together. We've got the business stuff. I know that yeah, we could have been ahead on this. We missed the deadline, but it all depends on funding. And bobbling the ball is costing us.
Karen?
Questions. Are there any convention reports, recordation of votes?
There hasn't been a vote to be made yet.
Direct your comments to me.
There's yet to be a vote. Because we don't have anything to vote on. Left the venue to the board.
Well, the convention committee should have been voting on what venue to recommend, themes, those sorts of things. So I just would ask for the future. But that's another thing. Kerner, I can help with if you need it at all. Frank, I'm pretty good friends with Robin. And then the other thing, again, was to bring up the business agenda that I have put forth, the offer that I've put together business for several years in a row, and I'd be more than willing to do that again. It would keep me occupied and not worried about convention. So that is something that I'm putting that offer out to the board, and that was it.
Kevin?
How far are we from actually being able to offer for sale?
I think we're going to be at the Festivus event this year. We'll plan a Festivus event, and we will go for that like we did in we started our ticket sales in 2017. And we're going to be having an extra month more where we were at on 17 at that date. The store could be ready for some preliminaries before that, but again, I want to get those speakers nailed down so that we know the product that we are selling. Why
time, Mr. Chair.
I do not need.
I think we need an extension because Michelle has a question.
In a minute.
Okay. Any objections to a minute extension?
I just wanted to make the argument that I put together 5 conventions, including a national convention, and I know enough about business and what is needed for business meetings. And I've already been concerned over committee. Or no, we're not going to drop the ball on it.
I'm going to add one thing here. As requested last month and the month before, we expect a written report to be included with your board report every month. Kevin?
It's getting something up to sell tickets. I think 30 party faithful that are going to buy tickets anyway would buy tickets today if they were available to sell. Get that kind of a head start. It's just, so, no better time than today. Let's go.
Thank you, Kevin. All right. We have no unfinished business from last month, so we will start with our new business, and Roger will start us off with a discussion of the 2018 election results. 4 minutes, please, Roger.
Chairman, is it possible to move this to the months first? Because I think this is a topic we have a lot of guests who are here. So is it a better idea maybe to slot this in at the end, take care of the other things, which I think we can fairly quickly?
So is that your first motion on this?
That would be my motion.
Okay, any objections? Okay, we'll move that to the end of our agenda. The next item would be the purchase of the November 1st Secretary of State voter file. The motion I was going to propose was just to free up the money to pay for that, but we have a new schedule now, so this one really doesn't apply. Next one is the Policies and Procedures Manual. Lance has already started us out on that one. My question was, and I did not have a chance to reach out to Jeff Work to see if we had a policy and procedures manual that was already created. So in the interest of saving time, we might not have to start from scratch. Mike?
Yeah, there's a complete, or at least one has been created, a complete one. Amy worked on it. We have all the policies and procedures.
Would you push that on the front page of our drive, please?
I have no idea. But it was it also, yeah, please reach out to.
Okay, Karen Ann?
I have spoken with Jeff on this before. This document, nobody has, I don't think it exists anymore. This board last term had decided on a certain course of action, which was to create it with the new, because a lot of procedures have changed since Jeff's time. And it was started, and myself, Richard Longstreth, John Hirschman, Eric Mulder, and I believe there was one other person, we got significant work done. And we still have that work product. And,
you do good.
And I had said that if we're going to actually complete it, and if people will commit to be on it, that I'd be more than willing to serve on that committee again. In fact, I'd be willing to chair that committee. I don't really want to, but if they didn't have anybody else, as long as John is agreeing to be on it again, because he did significant work. And Richard said that he would be interested too. So if we could get a couple more people, there's no reason all those hours of work should be thrown down the drain.
I would agree. John?
Karen had mentioned an issue about something about the way the committee was formed. It's supposed to be manned by board members. Is that right?
It was 5 board members.
Okay. And in order for Richard and Karen Ann to participate now, we have to be ex board members. You are former board members as well as board
Karen Ann, is that in our bylaws?
No, this was an ad hoc committee that was formed by motion of the board. So it would just need to be modified to be 5 current or former board members who you're going to want for procedures. They need to be familiar with it.
Okay, sure.
Is there any way that we could just post the information that we already have, find out what Amy has, put it all on a website someplace where we can look at it, and each one of us as our department, our position, can look at what it says for the state chair, make any alterations to it, so we have something, we're all starting from the same place, rather than trying to get a committee that has to meet, has to discuss this and
It
that.
sounds like a good portion of that work has already been done by the committee that was started last year.
If we could just post it, and then we could just jump in and finalize it. You know, I don't want to start all over again. I don't want to spend a lot of time in meetings and stuff. It's just meetings are wasting my time.
Time.
I have a motion for extension.
For 5 minutes.
Okay, second. Any objections?
Do we have time to cover the other items on there?
We're going to be tight, but we'll have to push this along. Okay.
That would, the board had already made the decision to make a policy manual. The idea is to get it on a more professional level, modeled after the LNC's policy manual, where we look like a professional political party. And it has certain structure, because not everything is a standing rule. Some things are special rules of order. There's different, it starts to get a bit more technical, where we have to start treating our rules and things like that seriously, because as we start getting more attention, things will start to be challenged. The basic groundwork has already been done. There's already been, 15, 16 hours on this that should not be thrown away. People who like doing it, people who don't want to spend time on it don't have to. This will at least get the skeleton of it done, and then things can be added, just like the LNC's policy manual, was. But everything's been kind of, you know, herky-jerky with the way sometimes we do our manuals, and we need to grow up beyond that.
Kim?
So one of the things that is that Richard has actually got a policy manual pretty much done in campaigns, but everything is kind of all over the place. Who is responsible for looking after the drive and cleaning it up and making sure that things are going where they're supposed to go? Nobody, I'm guessing. Everything's all over the place. So does anybody kind of want to have a look at cleaning that up, or?
We looked at reorganizing the drive beforehand because it's not obvious where things are.
Yeah.
But then when we started looking at moving things, people said, well, they know where they are now, and reorganize the whole thing, and then we won't know where they are. So, you know, if we want, we can redo the whole organization of the drive, but it's not obvious, but that's the organization.
Okay. Your name?
Mike's gonna love me. Logically, it should be. That would take charge
That's
of
why I
all
worked
that.
on it.
Yeah, and be like literally Hitler about it.
Yes.
Back to policy. The idea was to start out where we have all of the categories are in skeletal form. Basically, we've taken what the LNC's got and modifying it to fit as best we can. Once that's done, we've got all the categories. Then we can, what Michelle says, put it out and because it's supposed to be
So if we,
a living document.
if we, as the board directed before, finish the report that was started by you and Karen and Richard and all the folks that were involved before, finish that and then put that out as a skeleton, then each one of the directors can finish with any fine tuning that they feel is necessary. Is that what you're thinking? Do I read you right?
Do we need a motion, or is it continuing from before?
This is continuing before, but I think at this point, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we allow the committee that was formed before to finish the work that they've started, and then to pass it off to each individual director to finish any fine tuning that they feel is necessary. Yes.
Former board members.
Yes. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Identify that committee.
I'm sorry, Kevin?
Did you identify that committee? Who's on that committee?
Kieran?
Well, it would be, if we're reviving it from before, John, myself, most likely Richard Longstreth, but there would need to be 2 more members that are either current or former board members.
Eric's still in the party.
He wasn't interested.
Okay, so we need 2 more people to be involved in the policy and procedures meeting.
Why do we have to have 5?
No, we just did a new motion. Let's just go with it.
I'm sorry, say that again?
You just did a new motion. You didn't say 5 people. Motion was just to continue.
Well, frankly, if we can give a couple more people, that's great. If not, we have very, very competent people that are already on board with this. So, Kevin?
I just think part of your motion should identify the 3. Identify the 3, leave it open to add what's recommendations and bring it.
Okay, is that amendment? Okay. Do we have a second on that? Any objection to the amendment? Okay, the new motion is for the existing committee to take over where they left off before, and the 3 members are Karen Ann Harlos, John Hirschman, and Richard Longstreth, and others can join as well up to a maximum of 5.
Hi, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any objections?
I have one procedural inquiry.
Okay.
All right, is your intention of your motion for the committee to select its own chair? Does this board wish to select an interim chair to at least get things started? That kind of has to be part of it.
In my opinion, I think the committee should choose their own chair at this point. I think that would probably be the best, because the people that are already on that committee are going to know who has the best ability to chair the committee. So I would be okay with that. Okay. So no changes on the motion. Any objections to it? Okay, that passes. All right, next thing we have, John, this is yours.
I've already distributed K-4 discs for the board members. And in order to provide them to outreach, I'd like to sell 150 of them for $75. That's all right. Sell. Yeah. I already bought them.
Oh, okay. You've already bought them, John?
He wants to sell them to the party. Yes.
Okay.
If that's all right.
Would you state that motion clearly one more time, please, John?
I move that the party purchase 50 Catos CDs from the treasurer and about $1.50 each to $75.
And you're thinking about using those as a giveaway with the grab bag for convention?
My thought was the $5 donation.
Okay, so sell them with T-shirts and donations.
We don't sell any
donations.
That's my thought.
Request a donation.
Okay, do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Any objections? Okay, that passes. Go ahead and write yourself a check, John.
You got the 50 discs?
All right, we've already touched on the committee reports, so I'm going to go ahead and withdraw my.
I believe Mr. Seebeck had a concern about not the convention chair report, but convention related reports. Did you?
Mike, would you come up to the table, please, so we can hear you?
Kind of touched on the public comment section. Being the former chair of the Style Committee last year, and being on the platform, it is a lot easier for the platform cultures and bylaws committees to do their work if the Style Committee is not saddled current with their technical changes to those documents, while at the same time the other two committees are trying to work on substantive changes. Now, being all three of them allowed the ability to rotate these, refer substantive change in style with the other ones. But it's a lot easier if styles out of the way first, and then things can go. To that end, I would ask that the board constitute the style committee tonight so that they can get their work started. So that the bylaws and the platform committee are constituted, they are ready to hit the ground running. We have style changes to like what.
Okay. Matt?
Would you chair the style committee? Last year. I'm on it already anyway, but it serves as
Matt?
last year's my fault.
Only because of timing. Michelle?
I have a question about that. The Styles Committee works on things like punctuation and stuff. Isn't it better for them to do it last as opposed to first?
However, if the Style Committee uncovers substantive changes that they feel need to be referred over, sometimes fixing grammar punctuation can uncover a problem.
Okay.
We ran into that problem last year. That's why Mike is bringing this up now.
Just in editing.
David?
Would it be better if the Style Committee did its work immediately following the convention rather?
No, we just addressed it. The reason that it makes more sense for the Style Committee to do it up front is because if any of the changes that they make create a substantive change rather than a style change.
Right.
And that's the problem that we ran into last year. And so Mike's concern is if we start the Style Committee now, that any changes they make can be addressed by the bylaws and platform committees for the substantive.
Well, my point was, rather than wait 6 months from the convention to start the Style Committee, shouldn't the Style Committee start immediately following the?
For the following year.
Yes.
For the following year.
Can I answer that?
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
In election cycle seasons, that's a little more difficult because the focus returns post-convention campaigns.
Okay.
Off years, though, however, yes, entirely. changes to the constitution bylaws and platform are compiled from the convention, posted, then once that's official, then the style committee starts working.
Kiernan?
I didn't mean to do
Kim?
that. It goes back to the point I was making about setting up committees at convention. This would be a really good one to get people on board to sign up for at convention so that they're ready to go.
Great idea for next year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Added that because the outgoing chairs of the platform committee and the commission's bylaws are already active members of the next style committee continuity purposes. 2/5 of the committee is already constantly right there.
Yeah.
So that gets a head start.
Just for the, so what Mike, I believe, is asking for is us guys right now, yes, to appoint the 3 at-large party members selected by the board. Because right now it's automatically Mike and Clayton. 3 more people need to be appointed, and I think that's what you're asking for, is those appointments, so we can get to what you needed.
Okay. And that would be appointed by me.
By the board.
Okay. Who would like to appoint someone?
I'd like to appoint Karen and August.
Out of 7.
Anybody else? I would like to appoint John Hirschman. Would you accept that, John? Okay. Need one more. Come on, guys, we're running out of time here.
It does not have to be a board member. It can be. If we have if you're not a party member right now, are you?
I haven't registered.
When will you be?
I still have to find it.
Has to be a party member, so I was just looking to rope in some of it.
I would gladly do it.
Yes, ma'am.
He's not here. Do you think, no, I've seen maybe Michael Stapleton might be interested. Or maybe Jason Duxbury, because I mean, he's a writer. I mean, so you need kind of a memory.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and I'll take the responsibility of finding the 5th member. I think your 2 recommendations, Matt, are good. Jay especially. So I'll reach out to those people and I'll see if I can fill that last seat. Yes, Kieran.
We have less than 30 seconds on this. I just wanted to, since we're talking about convention related fees, just in general, to tie back to what I had said before, I do not think the convention is going to drop anything or forget about business. I just find it surprising that we're in the business of turning down volunteers. That's a very happy, fortunate position. That is what we're in.
Okay, next item of business is candidate online submissions, campaigns.
I already touched on that, so before.
Okay. We have this on here twice. All right. Guys, I'm going to touch one more time on the decorum on the board emails. Our email list is public, so I'm going to encourage everybody to keep your opinions professional and not personal. And I think it's real important that we are cognizant of the fact that our email list is open to the public. They can see it, so the importance of keeping decorum is very important. We don't have to comment on everything that we see on the list. I know there are certain people that seem to want to comment on everything that comes up. And I don't think that's productive. Sometimes it can be, but not always. So let's keep our comments professional, please. Okay. Roger, you're on. This is yours. And please start it with a motion, please.
With a motion. Motion. This is whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. So a motion for, I guess we have 40 minutes. So a motion. Why don't we start with a motion for 40 minutes of discussion about the election?
Second.
Objections? Okay, Veronica.
So, first off, everyone has seen kind of, I sent something around. Really, the objective here is frankly, is to avoid everyone wasting time. Because my personal view is I think the actual election results on last Tuesday were extremely disappointing. And it really goes to some extent to Kim's comment. And again, this is no reflection on themselves. As a matter of fact, it's the opposite of that. Because what I've always asked myself is whether we have failed in the past because we haven't had professional candidates, etc. So what I was really looking at was a series of campaigns, and I think I identified them in all the information I sent out. So this is people like Nick Sarwark. This is people like Sean. This is people like Laura Edke. This is people I would include, Matt Dubin in this list, etc. And so I was looking at these as kind of an example of, okay, if we do make serious efforts, if we do actually present good candidates, what would be the result? So these bellwether campaigns were something that I was monitoring, and I have to say across the board, it was extremely disappointing. And then, so really the objective here, and to open up the conversation, is we have to start asking ourselves, what is the reason for this? So the first step, and actually it's unfortunate that Mark Montoni is not here, because he actually sent out some data that
Mark Jonas
to go over.
He emailed, he said he can't hear. So.
You can't hear? Okay. Because I didn't have a chance to review it in advance. So the first step would be, am I being overly pessimistic? Okay? Because my interpretation of it may not be correct. I mean, I think as a background to that, I think I remember the fact that the party is now almost 50 years old. At some point, we have to grow up and actually have to start expecting outcomes for us instead of, hoping for future outcomes. So the first question is really, do other people have the same perception of the results of this election than I have? And then the second step to it is, okay, if the general view that it was disappointing, then the question is, where do we go from here? Why is it disappointing? For example, Kim, I think you've expressed the opinion that maybe the reason it's disappointing is that we live in such a hyper-partisan world that we as third-party candidates have gotten crushed because nobody wants to take the risk of a wasted vote. Okay, that I think is a plausible theory. Again, one of my overwhelming requests here is that we get some data. I find it extraordinary that we as a party, and frankly, I view the role of the party as being a marketing exercise in many respects. Right? I find it extraordinary that we as a party sit around and contemplate ourselves, and let's admit it, we're all atypical, or we wouldn't be here. And and we try to figure out how we're perceived by the outside world. To what extent, for example, is tactical voting a problem? All of these things we are doing in the complete absence of any data, which I find extraordinary. If we did have a failure last Tuesday, then I think we have to have some serious reflection on what was the cause of the failure. Was it, as I said before, a tactical voting issue? If it is a question of hyperpartisanship, then frankly, that's not great news for us, because I think we all viewed hyperpartisanship as being something that could rebound to our benefit. But if we're concluding that no, it doesn't rebound to our benefit, it makes it far from clear that we have an opening. That's just one of the questions. I think there's a whole series of questions we need to ask ourselves. I think there's an ongoing question about how we need to, market the party. Do we need to be more radical, less radical in the presentation? All of these things. And as I said before, we're doing all this in the total absence of data. So I guess the first step is, what is people's impression of what happened? And then, where do we go from here? In order to get some answers to some fundamental questions.
You have something?
There's two major things I'd like to talk about. The first one I'd like to talk about, the grand scheme of elections. The person I've spent some time talking to recently is Tom Mann. I think a lot of you guys know Tom. He was working his butt off, working multiple campaigns in the LNC's chosen races. I'm here to tell you that we got screwed in Wyoming. We didn't lose that race. We got screwed in Wyoming. And here's the simple fact of the matter when I talk to any candidate about what went there and why it functioned and why we're even sniffing it. Because we had someone up there who worked her ass off and put herself in front of every single voter in her district that she could, sans a few doors, including going to these doors on crutches and in a wheelchair. Apollo Gazelle pushing this woman around in a freaking wheelchair. Okay, and that's sweat equity, and she almost did it. Okay, so these races where, you know, we're not hitting it, they say, why? What did I do? What did I do? You didn't knock doors when you got home from work. Let's quit coddling people and tell them. Also talking with Tom, there's some races that we could have won up there too if the candidates had done more. This matters, okay? There is an outline and it all starts with hitching your cart to the right horse. And that right horse can be radical, they can be pragmatic, but they have got to be a freaking workhorse. Here's the other issue I have.
Hang on a minute, Matt. Karen has your.
Just Wyoming, just wanted to give you some data
Yeah.
points in there. We didn't lose that race.
Yes,
It's absolutely
you're right.
correct. There was all kinds of funky business, but Bethany did not want to pursue it. And it is within the candidate's prerogative whether to challenge it or not. She felt that it would torpedo any positive efforts she could do over the next few years because it's Wyoming. And she didn't want to sacrifice relationships. And she wasn't confident that there wouldn't be funky business in the recount anyway. So this was Bethany's entire decision. If it was up to the LNC or anyone else, there would be a lot of hell raised, but that's her decision.
Sure.
I'm going to just an overview. Kevin has run 2 races for State House, 2016, 2018. He got 6% in 2016 and 3% in 2018. He did exactly the same thing both races. There is a whole lot of stuff that goes on out there we have no control on.
Yes.
So, I mean, if we do have a race, we can get behind. And like Matt, I don't really care I think Roger said, I don't care how pragmatic they are or how radical they are. If it's a winnable race and the candidate is credible and is a reasonable candidate, let's put all our eggs in that basket and get them elected. Because until we get people elected, people won't vote for us.
We'll give us
So the first question was whether it was a failure or not. And it wasn't. We did what our job is. We had libertarians on everybody's ballot, multiple libertarians, everybody in Colorado. So they saw the name. Candidates like Roger went out and educated people and gave them the ideas of the liberty approach as opposed to the usual status approach. So that's exactly what campaigns are for. They're marketing, as Roger said, and we did it. As far as not doing enough effort, like Matt said, Ross, with some help, knocked on, put flyers on over 7,000 doors. And he put out libertarian flyers so people learn about the Libertarian Party. He put out his personal one, and he put out flyers opposing the Tabor massacre that they had lately. So, I mean, that was great. He did that. He got the usual 2%. We had a very professional candidate, which Michelle remember, Elke, and the entire party got behind her. We spent $14,000. And they hit every door. We had signs being pulled behind a truck throughout the district. We had signs in people's yards, everything we did. And there were 2, Republican and Democrat, and she got it up to like 7%. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it's not how hard you work. This is where the tribalism is right now. That's what we can do. So right now we're marketing.
We just stipulate a few things. First off, let's stipulate that we should all be focusing on local. Everything, there's universal agreement that we should be focusing on local, small elections. So let's just stipulate. That's number 1. Number 2 is that, Mike, I take some of your comments, but we're not being rewarded here for effort. This is not high school. Okay, what we are being rewarded here, or what we should be focusing on, is outcome. And the fact that we are making hard efforts and we are still getting nowhere is precisely the problem.
There are 4 libertarians in Colorado elected.
Got elected to
a water board, county or what were you on? Historical board.
Yeah, I wasn't elected.
Oh, man. And city council.
Okay, but I would suggest, however, that after 47 years, I'm sorry, and let's not forget the fact that Larry Sharp raised $500,000, spent 18 months campaigning, and he was defeated by the Green Party. He was on Kennedy. He had a large amount of exposure, and he got 1.6% of the vote. You know, the a priori way I spoke to Matt Welch at Reason, who was following his campaign. A priori, Matt Welch thought he should be in the 7, 8, 9%. So we cannot deny. You know, Nick Sarwark, who has significant involvement in Phoenix, significant personal attachments, he came in 4th in his election, notwithstanding the fact that he ran a professional election, had contact with the community, etc. I think we are deluding ourselves if we continue to say that, oh, we're on the water board, etc. I don't think we can deny that at 47 years old, however this party is, not made significant progress. And, you know, if I can talk my personal situation, I lost to an independent candidate who basically spent no money, who had policies that were indistinguishable from the Democratic candidate, and who was an idiot. And so, you know, and I'm not saying I ran the perfect campaign, but, you know, I think we have a fundamental problem.
Kim?
One of the things that was very different about this election cycle versus last 2016 is exactly that we had a lot of independents running. We had a lot of independents running. I got 2.8% in my district. Last year I got 6%. Independent came along to 4%. We had a lot of independents running in races that we didn't have last time. So this is a big thing, that 6% that didn't vote Republican or Democrat split between the independent and I. So we are putting forth our effort. But what I'm hearing from a lot of people is they're not quite sure what libertarians stand for. They're confused about our message. They're confused about why we would be good to have elected. We have not done a very good job of presenting apart from I'm all right, Jack, screw you, kind of an idea that a lot of people have. We have a problem with they don't understand what we are doing, why we are different to Republicans, because a lot of people think that we're Republicans with we, like Episcopalians and Catholic with divorce. Basically. But this is a messaging thing that we, and as Matt and everybody has said, whether we're coming out with a radical, but just to be quite honest, if you're going to an unaffiliated base, a Republican base that's not happy with the very right-wing way of Trumpism, and you're talking to Democrats who are not happy with the socialism and progressive march towards socialism that the Democratic Party is going to be taking, abolish the Fed and burn down the Department of Education may not be the first introduction that you want to make. Let's start with just the tip.
Multiple points here. Talking with a lot of affiliates and having a bit of a national perspective and seeing what the national party, with their analytics and their opinions on it have been, is this was such a fear-based election. Each election it has to be judged within a different milieu. And midterms are always different. Midterms tend to run more on fear because you have your guy or you don't have your guy in the big seat, and everyone is looking to shift that control of power. Third parties never do as well in midterms. This should be expected up to a point. I don't think we do ourselves any favors where we pretend like there isn't anything we could do better, but I also don't think we're doing much for morale if you're Chicken Little either. I think there's a balance there, but this was super hyper partisan. You saw it in your race, Matt. Wayne, excuse me, I'm like all over the place here because I'm looking at my notes. With the marketing issue, this is the thing where there's an economy of scale that I think the National Party has to do a little bit of a better job with marketing, because you can't have the 50 independent things. And Nick does have a plan with that. That was the whole chicken and the stick and all that, whether we like it or not. He has been bringing together a unified marketing. Anyone here who is really concerned about our message and our marketing, if you're not paying attention to what the LNC is doing, I submit that you're not that concerned. Because that is the National Party. You should be paying attention to what's going on there. Also, I think we're placing way too inordinate emphasis rather than an equal emphasis on elections. Third-party politics does not work just that way. Of course, they're important, but you have to give things for activists to do outside of that, and we can win on issues. We do not focus enough on issues, which is something I brought up 2 years ago to the board, where this board needs to pick 1 or 2 issues that have 3 characteristics. They're identifiable, they're quantifiable, and they're winnable, actually 4. And there's already groups working on them that we can merge resources with. That will start to give us money, because people care about issues, not the whole big bundle. And we could win on that. And I will pound it and pound it and pound it. The death penalty is going down in Colorado. We could be on the forefront of that and get a ton of money, get a bunch of activists very, very excited, and have a victory. What victory was everyone so excited about a year and a half ago? That I beat the state of Colorado with a ballot selfie lawsuit. We need things like that in addition to the elections, that to boost morale and have victories, because it's that elections are actually the lagging indicator of other things. Being on the legislative forefront is much more important. And now that we're in an off year, we need to be continuing. Electoral activism is not just elections. It's lobbying, it's petitioning, it's all sorts of other things that I think we're losing completely track of. And I thought that for a couple of years. I've been saying this to the LPCO. 1 second. Sure. New York also has a weird thing with fusion ballots. I don't know if the green was on more than 1 ballot line. I think they were. It's not comparing apples to apples. Somebody else has said that there is a strong anti-government strand in this country on both sides. The Bernie bros are anti-government in one way, and your Trumpsters or those sorts of people are anti-government another way. We're the only anti-government party. That is a simple, basic message that people can relate to. And Trump tapped into that with his anti-establishment. I'm not, bringing the swamp stuff, which he isn't even doing. That is right now where the pulse is that we're missing.
I'm going to break a little bit. And Jack has had his hand up for a long time. So, Mr. Ware, you have something you want to bring to the table?
Yeah, I read Roger's report, and I like that very much. But I kind of like, it's like a tag and close. I want to turn it around and look at the other side. Roger said one thing. He said that put success in quotes for Wyoming, and because the young lady was, well, she was already known in the community and all that. It's not so much like a brand thing. I know half the state legislators in the state, and they all are known in the community. That's who they are. That's who these people are who get elected. The people who are known in their community. Libertarians tend to be imperfectly socialized, isolated, and so the more candidates you have that are more well known in their community in a positive way, will do better. But the other thing he said about branding, the answers. I thought for years the answer's right from our face. It's not that we're, we try to sell the traditionally tried to sell the anti-government and anti-this and anti-that, but anti doesn't sell unless you want to go down and appeal to the hateful morons, which is what Trump did. He went out and found all all the morons in America who wanted to scream and burn something down, and so anti doesn't sell to anybody but them, really. We've got to be pro something, and there's one thing that's so obvious, and if you just look around this room. The Libertarian Party is the party of small business. Everybody in this room has an LLC, or has had one. That's who we are. I mean, let's get in touch with our center. That's who we are. There's no party for small business now. Frank has a piece of paper there about this new brilliant sales tax scheme they have where everybody with a mom and pop shop has to have software to calculate the sales tax for every possible jurisdiction in the state. And that's gonna cost them like $3,500 a year, subscriptions and stuff like that. I mean, come on. You are the only party that the Republican Party has even given us the pretense of the party for small business. They're party for the defense contractors, for big oil. The Democrats are the party for big software, big entertainment. Nobody's watching for the small businessman.
We're out of time.
That's our market.
We have a motion to extend. We have another 20 minutes.
Motion to extend 20 minutes.
Second.
Any objections? All right, Jack, finish your thought.
I did finish, yes, thank you.
All right, Michelle.
I wanted to touch base on what I was talking earlier about finding races we can win, local races like this. I don't want to overlook the importance of having somebody like Roger running for CD or having somebody like Gary Johnson running for president. That gives us credibility across the board. If you look at the numbers during Harry Brown's 2 runs for president and how many members we gained because we had somebody that was credible and presentable in the presidential seat. And when we had Gary Johnson running, saw the same spike. We need to keep those people as well as the small people. We can't expect to win necessarily, but we've got to have them.
I agree with Karen Ann about the issues. We allied ourselves with the marijuana legalization stuff. I think we got a lot of members from that. That was very useful. I don't know what the issue is now, but we had a chance to align ourselves with the tax reduction initiative, but we kind of bobbled that. So maybe there's something in the future that will help give it credibility as a market.
So the other thing that I really wanted to hit on when I was talking, this is something that stood out to me. Looking at the governor's race and then 2 state house races. I think we make a mistake in messaging by thinking that we can tap into this culture war in some way and come out winning. The only way that you're gonna wrestle with odds, they like it. And here's the simple fact of the matter when it comes to how we message that I think comes true. So Clinton 47.2, Trump 44.4, Johnson 5%. This year, Governor Polis 52.3, Stapleton 44, Hulker 2.7. Democrats took those votes. State House 63, Republican held. Let's see here, Joe Johnson 3,678 votes in 2016. This year, 2,035, roughly the same vote counts for total. Your district, Kevin, 2,747, 16, 1,529 this year. And if you look at the numbers and you look at the gaps, all Democrats. All Democrats. And I think that people in this party, when it comes to our way that we grow, the way that we look at things in more urban environments, is the fact of the matter, whether you like it or not. We are radical liberals, and we have inherited what got killed at Kent State in the 70s. Embrace it.
Okay. To touch up on something Jack said, anti-government and small business go hand in hand. He's absolutely correct. You can't just be anti, you have to be pro. But when people hear it, it's anti-big, pro small. Anti-big guy, pro little guy. That 2 message goes in tandem. And I know everyone's going to say I'm virtue signaling, but I think we ought to be really careful again about calling people morons and idiots. These are people we are trying to reach. We are not only, though, another thing that there's no longer an anti-war party. That's another thing that we can absolutely capitalize on, because those 2 don't even pretend to be that anymore. Something that Michelle had said, where you cannot neglect the top of the ticket. That is absolutely correct. And the way it's always been understood, and I don't think there's any other way to do it, is your big ticket ones, your high ones, they're not going to win. Those are your definite education candidates. They have to be well spoken and be out to educate. If they're not educating and bringing in members, they're no use. And if they're deluding themselves that they're going to win, it's no use. They have to have a specific goal. We're going to win first locally. When it comes to the liberal thing, Matt touched on something that's what we need to own. There are no more liberals. There's no liberal party right now. You got progressives and you got whatever those other people are. We are the liberal party. And I think we do need to own that. And I think we shy away from that sometimes because we're equivocating liberal and progressive, and they are not the same thing. But I would add one other thing about tapping into the culture war that is very, very destructive, but it's also very destructive within the party. I think we all need to embrace what we are, whether some of it we like, some of it we don't like, because we spend all of this time fighting each other, and we can't afford that. It is exhausting. We end up sniping. We end up not pooling our forces. And I would hope that maybe today, maybe we could get some Nerf balls or something, and I'll get in the middle here and just beat the shit out of each other until we're all happy and stop the internal culture war. But there are a lot of things we can sell. Peace is the big one. There is no anti-war party.
Kim?
One of the biggest motivated blocks of voters in Colorado were Democratic women.
Yes.
They're a huge, huge resource. Biggest employers in the country are small business owners. And the largest owners of small business are women. We miss a lot of votes. We miss a lot of votes not talking to female small business owners, female entrepreneurs, and targeting messages in that direction as well. So that's another problem.
We have a group that is reaching out to local groups. Maybe some of the women's groups should be a focus, because I know that made a big difference in this year's election. The biggest demographic change in percentage was the women voters, and by a significant amount. Roger?
A couple things. First off, Karen Ann's comments about that was my number. That was one of my number one focus things. If you saw any of my literature, I had 3 campaign themes. That was number one. This was something I emphasized. I actually thought it would be a major issue as well, and particularly among up at CSU and CU, nowhere, zero traction, zero. First thing I point out. Thing I point out, and since Jack's comments before, but when I'm and also to your comments as well, what I'm trying to figure out is whether the libertarian brand is positive or negative. And when I look, so for example, your comments came about independence. Sorry, but what that tells me is that when Richard Longstreth got 6% out back in 2016, that was a no-to vote. Okay, and if you combine my result with Nick Thomas's result this time around, it's basically the same. Okay, but what that tells me is that first off, it was a no-to vote back in 2016. Number two is that the fact that Nick Thomas actually did twice my vote, having done nothing, tells me that the libertarian brand is actually a negative. So, the fact that we're splitting with independents doesn't, if anything, this is, this actually shows me part of the problem we have. The fact that, that independents are stepping in from nowhere. And if you're saying we have a messaging problem, well, what does an independent stand? This means nothing, right? And if we're losing consistently to independents, then again, that tells me that we have a serious problem. And it may be that the Libertarian Party brand is actually a negative.
We have a candidate back here in the corner. Forgive me, I don't remember your name.
Eric.
Eric, go ahead.
Earlier, Mr. D brought up psilocybin.
Yeah.
Colorado may be the highest percentage of vets. I'm not sure about that, but with PTSD, psilocybin is possibly the most effective. Karen Ann brought up issues. That's one issue that can unite progressives, libertarians, veterans who tend to vote certain. Just strategically, that might be one of the issues.
Thank you. Mike?
I've run in nonpartisan races, I've run in partisan races. When I ran a nonpartisan race, I didn't shy away from libertarian partisan race. I didn't shy away from it. What I did in both cases, I focused on issues that were relevant to the race, and I framed them in a way that said there's a better way to do these things. And a lot of it was framed in a way that was almost counterculture. I don't mean that in terms of AK-47s, tie-dye wearing hippies. I never read this stuff either. Okay. What I mean by that is that I took position of the people who were running against me. I flipped it. I ran for my school board seat. They were all in favor of this big bond issue, which turned to be nothing political. Like, check. I pointed that out. The bond went down in flames. I came in fourth for 3 seats out of 5 candidates. They got 35% of the vote. Because I had the balls to stand up and say, wait a second. 2 years ago when I ran for state legislature, we had an incumbent Republican who then hid from everybody. I pointed that out. Got 31% of the vote. I spent a grand total of no money on the party. 0. I'm not sure if I'm a pattern. Most non-draft district. I don't know if there's a pattern there or not, but it makes me sit there and think that if we frame issues and we frame our opposition as being not in touch with what needs to be done for that specific district or the race we're running in, it doesn't matter whether you're talking at the national level or down dog catcher. Maybe that's the tap into it. The other piece of this is this. I had 0 media coverage. But I had 1 article in local Mountain Valley press, and it was not nice to me because I had the balls to point out a couple of things that they didn't want to hear. One was actually edited my comments, and I called them out. I had no media coverage whatsoever, yet I still pulled that book because I was also showing up at the local government meetings, finding out what the hell was going on. I was active, I was visible. I made the effort to do this. Press suppression is a problem. Back in 2002, when I ran the Senate 17 campaign for Jeff Lee, we went from a 3% protest vote to 9% in 3 weeks flat because we had media coverage. So I was able to get a good candidate with a good message. That race was decided to control the state senate by 0.5%. That was no protest vote. It was because we did a lot of things right. We had publicity out, we had a good message that was positive, because we were able to make it happen. And it wasn't a case of a lot of money. It was a case of seizing the opportunities and presenting the positive message, but also that message being contrary to what everybody else was doing. To say, hey, they're busy doing all this crazy crap. Here's some good ideas that we could bring to the table.
Thank you, Mike.
Something important, I think, to look at here, and Larry enjoyed this, reminding me of this. So there are times when we need somebody to be professional on a race, and there are times when we need to be radical and make a stand. And what I think that we miss out on attracting some people is dropping the ball. I don't want to call out here, but when was that when you got roughed up by Fort Morgan Cross Street? Was it June or July?
May I comment?
I would, please.
Yes, go ahead.
Listen to this story, please.
So, libertarians are supposed to be about the individual, fighting for the individual. I know the group effort here is to fight for the individual, but you guys are wasting so much damn time. I don't have time for this. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to fight for the individual. And I'm going to do it in a way that's going to show people the individual matters. So when you're gonna focus on issues and how they can win campaigns, don't you first need to bring awareness to the issues? Because we know that the average voter doesn't have any awareness to the issues. So the 2 cruxes of our freedom, law enforcement and education. So if I'm going to go out and take a stand to show why we need awareness around issues. It's gonna get rough. I get it, and you have to be a certain person that's willing to take on some of these issues, and I'm one of those. And I could go out and I can report the police. I can have interaction with elected officials when it's in the heat of the moment, in the courtroom, with the DA, with the cops, whatever. These issues are that affect freedom and affect the next generation. And I can confront those head on. But I get my ass kicked physically as a woman with no man by my side out there saying, why are you doing this? I got thrown through the front doors of the Morgan County Courthouse back in July by the undersheriff, who was just elected sheriff, ran unopposed. Been the undersheriff for a long time. There's a lot of bad things going on. A lot of people out there, a lot of individual people that are sitting in jail, that have had their families ruined, lives destroyed, the whole works, right? I don't have time to get party support. I don't have time for you guys to organize, to bring these issues to the forefront, to the next generation. That's just one incident. I do this all the time. I've got a little girl in Jeffco that asked me today, what's the Libertarian Party? Because she just went and served 3 days in jail because the judge thought that was cool to teach her a lesson, even though it had nothing to do with her crime, right? So she's got a dog, she's got a job, she's got an apartment, she's an individual, she's brought herself up from homelessness, and she's stuck in the justice system. So I help her. I want to introduce her to freedom and where there are opportunities for that generation to fit in. And not one of you have said or mentioned her age group. She's 21. You talk about outreach, you talk about connectivity. Not one of you has said we need to be on a college campus.
Lance, you had something?
Yeah, so Roger, can you tell us about what is the number one thing you heard over and over again when you said you were a libertarian? What did you hear there? And then what was one thing that surprised you that people do give a shit about? Contrast it versus the war.
Sure.
Nobody cares about it.
Well, to be honest, there was actually very little. I mean, the greatest frustration being as a libertarian candidate is that there was actually very little. Is that first off, I attended every forum. I actually got pretty good media coverage. For example, we tried to arrange 4 different meet and greets where we heavily advertised them within the Libertarian Party. We encouraged people to bring friends, open-minded friends. We advertised one of them in the local newspaper. We advertised a lot of them on Facebook. 3 couples showed up. 3 couples. 4 different events, 3 couples. That was it. So the basic problem is that no matter how persuasive you may or may not be, no matter where you stand on policy issues, if you're not getting in front of an audience, it's all pointless. Now, to turn to your other point too, is that, and again, you're kind of outside of the civil side. The reality is, all of the polling data coming out of this election said that the 2 biggest issues were healthcare at a national level. Okay, healthcare and immigration. Right? So we can talk about suicide and all the rest of that. I agree with all of these things, okay? All of these things should be part of our platform, but we are leading with things that, number one, people don't really, the average person doesn't care about. We cannot lead with things that the average person doesn't care about. Sex workers, the average person doesn't care. This should be part of our platform, etc. But if we lead with these issues, we first off do not speak to the day-to-day concerns. This goes back to Jack's comment before. And my campaign motto was freedom works. Because my assumption is people don't give a crap about all the philosophy, our intellectual consistency, etc. What they want to know is, are we going to make their lives better? So we better address the issues that they actually care about, and we better show them that we have practical solutions to the issues that they're facing in their day-to-day life. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes we make, is that we don't speak to the real concerns of people.
On that note, we are out of time.
Motion to extend 5 minutes.
You have a second? Any objection? Okay, 5 minutes.
All right, so I'm sorry we jumped around there. I wanted to touch on Regan's point for a reason. I sent out a board email when she started getting talked about that, put it out there by the board comms. I didn't get a response. From the board. Okay, so here's the thing. If we want to say that we are the people who fight for individual rights, when one of our own, all right, this was Lily's campaign manager, okay? When one of our own is getting beat up by the cops, gotta mobilize. There's nothing I can do, Wayne. I am so fucking afraid of the cops without people behind me. I am so fucking afraid of them. And that's why I'm saying we need a goddamn army. Because these people are militarized and they are out for goddamn blood. And we post up about it. Oh no, a black guy got beaten up by the cops. We're never there to fucking help.
This is being recorded. Karen?
On that note, something that has been brought up before in the past, when there's local crisis issues, we should have some kind of activist crisis response network.
Yes.
It's not just depending on Facebook. We should have text numbers. This is the way a lot of these self-sufficient communities handle things. The agorists and all that. And we should have in each area people who are ready to go to the scene of things. I mean, that's just something that should be part of our repertoire. Just putting something on the board, everyone thinks someone else is going to. It's the tragedy of the bystander.
Kim?
So, going back to several points, but what we need to do is not, we've been arguing about which way is the right way to go. I think we need to attack all points. I think we need our radicals and our activists to be tackling the issues. Sex work, that plank is very important, and it does affect a lot of people's lives, more than I think a lot of people come in the country where the prostitution has been legalized and it's been very successful. We also need our candidates to do as Roger said. We need to research our issues in our communities and our seats and take that message to of how we're going to make their lives better. So I think we need to make this a multiple-pronged attack. We need to raise our brand. We need to become more engaged in our community, and that starts at our local level and our affiliates.
Lance?
In my short 2 years of being what I would deem as a real activist out there doing stuff, bitching about the gun ban constantly in Boulder, and still fighting it, I managed to help raise $10,000. So that's real activism. But it all relied on actually having a pretty active affiliate. I wouldn't say Boulder's the best, but we do have a pretty damn big social media presence. And then I had to build a coalition with a shitload of Republicans who actually cared and were out there doing stuff. So if we want to talk about two big statewide issues that are going to come up, they've already signaled that what they're going to go after. They're going to go after a red flag law at the Capitol January 4th. It's going to happen. We have 2 articles coming out tomorrow in the Denver Post, hopefully, about it already. And then the other one is healthcare. Jared Polis is going to try to ram down a single-payer system. So if you want to talk about 2 issues to focus on, there it is. There it is, plain and simple. And then if you want to go to a local level, I'm going to go after a grocery tax. And I know Wayne has already talked about grocery tax in his city. So those are the things. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to what Karen Ann says. You got to have a active affiliate that actually gives a shit. So that's why I would challenge you again, man. Get going on Weld County. Otherwise, I don't know what to say.
Kieran?
Another point when we were talking about committees, we should have a million. And there's a reason for it, and I'll explain. I know some people think that's silly, but it's bearing fruit on national. A lot of times we say, we have this need, and we've got all these volunteers, and we're trying to force them into that need. These are people volunteering. We're not paying them. You need to find out what our volunteers are already passionate about and let them go. Be free. Handle this. Organize something. And you'll get so much more out of the volunteers. You can't force them only into the issues we care about or think is important. So for instance, I'm just gonna give a national example, and it's a personal national example, with the historical project that I'm working on, something that I was really big into, but so were a bunch of other people. There's been well over 1,000 volunteer hours and probably $20,000 put into it. These people weren't volunteering or giving to the party before, because they had nothing that interested them. And that ties into the sex worker thing, because on that I fundamentally disagree with Roger. But I kind of disagree. We need to do segmented marketing, and that's what National is starting to work on. They sent out a text not that long ago about trans rights. That's a bunch of people got, and a bunch of people lost their flipping minds over this text. But it was a plan, believe it or not, because everyone that lost their mind, they put a little note in the Razor's Edge database, not interested in trans issues. So they'll never get a segmented marketing from us on that. We're tailoring to what our activists care about. And it's not always what I care about or we do care about. We have been doing segmented marketing to sex workers, and we have gotten back people who abandoned the party 14 years ago. So no, those issues are important too. And the people who are into sometimes the minor issues are the biggest donors, because not that many people are concerned about them. We get the yearly max $33,500 from things like sex workers' rights. That is the type of thing that gets people passionate. We are a third party. We are a minority. People do not go to the stocks for every day. You've got to find their passion and light them on fire.
We are out of time. Do I hear? We have a
Well, it's
motion
orders
to.
of the day at this point.
Yeah, it is.
We are finished. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Jackson. We used to have a bucket that we passed around at every board meeting. Where's the bucket?
We don't have a bucket. We are adjourned. Go ahead, finish your thoughts.
Call Roger the bucket.
Where's the belt?
Fish bowls are illegal.
Thank you for volunteering.
Fish bowls are illegal.
I am volunteering. I mean, I brought a $20 bill for the Libertarian Party. I mean, where's the bucket?
We used to do that every meeting.
Every meeting.
That's before my time. Thank you, Jack.
Oh, are you gonna ratify?
Take your hat off, Matt. That'll be your bucket.
Almost for the poor.
Okay. You're collecting, okay.
Yes.
Go watch this guy. Right, a penny back since 1999.
Hey, Jack, it was good to see you.
Yeah.
Glad you came up.
You're looking for